Good morning, dear shareholders, ladies, gentlemen. It is for me an honor to address you again. I would like to welcome you to this annual shareholder meeting on behalf of the board and in my own name, and thank you for your physical presence or your telematic presence and the trust you have towards Indra. I would like to welcome all those shareholders that have delegated the power to vote. It is very important for Indra to have all of its shareholders participating in the annual shareholder meeting. We're very grateful to see the interest you have shown despite the circumstances we're living today. Because of this health crisis and in accordance with current legislation, we have enabled telematic presence for this shareholder meeting. We have adopted all necessary safety security measures in order to hold the meeting in compliance with current legislation. For this reason, I'm accompanied only by the Secretary and the Deputy Secretary of the Board. The Chairman of the Commissions and the rest of the board members are either sitting in the first rows of this room or attending the meeting through all the resources that have been enabled to attend remotely. I now yield the floor to the Secretary. We're not getting sound. The microphone seems to be off. We are not getting sound in the interpreting booth because the microphone is off. No proposals have been made to alter the agenda of the day today. There is a proposal for the inclusion of Rosa Maria Piñero. Yesterday, on the 24th of June, Mrs. García Piñero declined the offer because there was a vote against her nomination by SEPI.
Pueda continuar estando integrado por 13 miembros.
We need a majority of independent advisors, so we will stick to the agenda so that we designate a new independent advisor, member of the board, in accordance with the proposal made by the Committee for Nominations. We have the Notary Public, Mr. Gerardo von Wichmann-Rovira. He will provide us with the minutes in accordance with Article 203.2 of current legislation. We would also like to inform you that since the date of the call and until today, all information has been made available through the main website, the official website for Indra. In accordance with Article 518 of Capital Companies, a website has been enabled. The proposals for agreements have been formulated in a detached manner for those matters that are substantially independent from each other. Figures on the capital that is present, we have 70 shareholders corresponding to 35,555,334 shares, accounting for 20.12% of capital. Represented shareholders 198, accounting for some 85,537,248, 48.42%. That brings us to a total of 268 shareholders, 121 million shares, accounting for 68% of capital. We are counting the last halves, and before we finish, we'll tell you about the figures. We're not getting sound, the microphone is off. After listening to the provisional figures as provided by the Secretary, I hereby declare the meeting open. We now move on to the main blocks, and I'll yield the floor to Mr. Notary Public, Mr. Gerardo von Wichmann-Rovira. I must ask you whether there are any reservations or objections. Let me remind you that if you're attending telematically, you may express your objections or reservations. Very well. We now yield the floor to the Secretary so that he explains the procedure we will follow. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me inform you about the following. If any shareholder present in this room wishes to talk in order to request information or clarification regarding the points in the agenda or regarding the public information made available to the CNMV, they should identify themselves before doing so. I would like to call upon the shareholders wishing to talk. If they wish to have their talk included, their intervention included in the minutes, please provide us with the information in writing so that the notary public may match it against the minutes. When you are named, you must use any of the microphones that have been installed in the room. There will be a response from the board. Regarding those shareholders that are attending remotely, you have had the chance to send your intervention or question through the corresponding software application. In accordance with Article 182 of current law, there will be answers in writing within the next 7 days, but there might be answers throughout the meeting today. Thank you so much. Good morning again, ladies and gentlemen shareholders. Welcome again to this annual general meeting. A very unique one because the circumstances are so strange. I'm especially grateful to all of you attending the meeting in this room and those of you attending remotely. First of all, I hope you're safe and well, you and your families. I would like to convey a message on our support to all of you who have suffered, directly or indirectly, the tragical effects of the pandemic. And I'm talking about shareholders, clients and employees. I would like to say a special thank you to all those professionals in this company that through their hard work have made it possible to keep this company moving. Through their effort, we have been able to be there, we have been able to be present. These professionals are once more a great reason to be proud of everything we do. Despite the difficulties we have faced, the challenges we have faced, I must say that we have reacted quickly to mitigate the consequences of this pandemic. But of course, the consequences on the dynamics of the company have been very relevant. The results, the performance for 2019, which we are about to analyze, show a continuity in the positive momentum we have achieved in recent years as a result of all the transformation processes that we have implemented. We have good performance in sales activity as reflected in the strong growth of our portfolio, on the number of contracts and on revenues, and the improved profitability through EBIT. In compliance with all the goals for 2019, talking about the portfolio, we reached 4.5 billion euros at the end of 2019, with a growth rate of 11%. The ratio of portfolio over sales for the last 12 months has broken an all-time record. We now have 1.41 as compared with 1.31 times in 2018. The net number of contracts has gone up by 8% in the local currency, with significant progress in both divisions and accounting for some 3.7 billion euros. Contracts in the area of transport and defense has grown by 12% because of the large contracts in defense, like the manufacturing of the digital antenna for the frigates in the F110 series. In Minsait, contracts have gone up by 5% with a significant contribution in the verticals of government and telecom and media, with very relevant contracts in Spain and Italy. So we've seen a growth in our revenue of 4% in local currency, reaching 3.2 billion euros, driven basically by Insight and our good performance in the Americas, with double-digit growth rates and Brazil as the main driver for growth. Insight's performance during 2019 has been very positive, both in terms of growth and in improved profitability. Sales have gone up by 6%, with EBIT up by 77%. Our EBIT margin is 3.8%, which accounts for 1.6 percentage points above the results we achieved in 2018. This is a clear reflection of the change in the business mix for IT and the deep transformation that has taken place in this business area, with digital services showing 13% annual growth, accounting for some 456 million euros and 23% of sales. Talking about transport and defense, we must outline the progress we have achieved in the strategic reorientation of defense towards larger programs. We have seen an increase of 41% of contracts in 2019 in defense, and the good visibility of our pipeline with significant achievements in national and European programs, including FCAS and VCR 8x8. There's a slight growth also in sales in transport and traffic, despite the delays in the certification of milestones in certain contracts which are relevant in the AMEA region. The profitability for the group has gone up again. EBITDA in 2019, which includes the effect of NIF 16, increased by 18%, reaching 346 million euros. If we excluded the effect of NIF 16, EBITDA would have reached 318 million euros, as compared to the 293 million achieved in 2018. EBIT in 2019 grew by 11%, reaching 221 million euros. We have seen an improvement in EBIT margin up to 6.9% compared to 6.4% in 2018, reflecting the impact of all initiatives in our business and corporate lines. The net result for the group reached 121 million euros in 2019, which is a figure similar to the 120 millions that were achieved in 2018, with a higher tax burden of 29% as compared to 25%. Talking about free cash flow, we have reached a figure of 8 million euros. The negative contribution of working capital during the first half of the year must be compared to the new situation in telecom and media, reaching 246 million euros. Net debt, 552 million euros. Here we have a ratio, net debt EBITDA of 1.8 times. The acquisition and integration of SIA, a company that specialized in cybersecurity, consolidates us as a leader in the market of information security in Spain and Portugal. This goes along the lines of other M&A operations that have been completed successfully in recent years and which explain the positive effects that we have experienced in sales growth. Last but not least, I would like to mention our commitment and constant efforts to improve our social development, our environmental commitment, and our corporate governance. We have renewed our presence in the Dow Jones Sustainability Index, also in FTSE4Good, and our inclusion in the Bloomberg Gender Equality Index DEI 2020. Only 15 companies in Spain are included in that index. Our commitment towards sustainability and social impact has been reinforced this year with the decision reached by the board to create a commission on sustainability with powers on non-financial matters and in charge of fostering a very ambitious plan on sustainability and social impact, so that we keep moving in the right direction in areas such as the fight against climate change, the circular economy, and in general terms on the responsible management of our business and its social and environmental impact. Our commitment on sustainability, together with other essential initiatives, including the cultural transformation Change from the Core, has made us more attractive for professionals in the digital era, has made us ready for the new ways of work. And because of all these reasons, our good performance and the improvement of our brand have allowed us to grow significantly in employment, talent, and digital capacity. Our average headcount has gone up by 14% compared to 2018, reaching 49,607 employees at the end of 2019. During 2019, Indra has hired more than 1,400 people in Spain alone. More than 3,000 new recruits in the last years, recognized as the top employer in 2020. As I mentioned at the beginning, we can see that the performance for 2019 are a clear reflection of the positive evolution of Indra during last year. We must take into account the strategic aspects, such as the strength of our portfolio, the increase in our digital capacities, and the creation of high-value added jobs. Our objectives were very ambitious for 2020, with a record of budget in terms of hiring, one-digit growth rates, and an increase in EBIT of more than 15% compared to 2019. Obviously, we have been impacted by the health crisis, something that is affecting us seriously since the beginning of March of this year. So once we have analyzed the results for 2019, we deem it convenient to talk about and analyze the effects of the crisis. Obviously, we have seen the impact of the health crisis and its dramatic consequences in terms of public health. Urgent actions have been implemented in different areas. So what have we done? First, we have protected our professionals. Our actions have focused on complying strictly with the recommendation of national and international authorities. We have provided our employees with all the necessary resources. I believe we have reacted promptly. We were one of the first companies to make it possible for workers to work from home. We have transformed the working areas in our company, also in order to allow for the physical presence of some of our employees. We have developed initiatives in recent years, such as the Cultural Transformation Plan, which has made it easier for us to implement new flexible working procedures, and that made it easier for us to adapt to the new situation. More than 90% of our staff has been working remotely since the very first week of the emergency state in Spain. On top of that, other actions have been implemented that have allowed us to monitor the evolution of the pandemic. We have set up a crisis committee. We have launched human resources initiatives to improve the employees' experience in order to recover our activity, especially in our plants. Thanks to all of this, we have allowed business continuity for all of our customers since day one of the pandemic. A significant part of the operations of our customers is considered essential for their national economies. Indra has been a major contributor to key areas such as urban mobility, air traffic, the operation of financial entities, and the management of electric and telecommunication networks. We're going back to a relative normalcy in Spain, but we cannot forget that in Latin America and other countries, they are in a very acute situation regarding the health crisis. We have made an effort to anticipate all negative scenarios by strengthening our balance sheet, by ensuring that we have additional liquidity and refunding or refinancing maturity for the next 2 years in different transactions. Lastly, throughout the last months, we have evolved significantly in order to understand the impacts and in order to put together scenarios and forecasts for the near future. This has all happened in an environment of high uncertainty, but we have made progress.
Yo creo que debemos ser conscientes de la I think we should be aware of the magnitude of the challenge that we're facing and that will require more than short-term actions. We are in the midst of a global economic crisis with an uncertain end and very deep consequences for our clients. We have suffered an abrupt fall of economic activity, of the income for families and companies, and the deterioration is not homogeneous. It has affected seriously many sectors that are related to our business, like air transport, manufacturing industry, among others. Analysts and experts agree on the depth of the crisis and are considering different scenarios of recovery. And this is not measured in months, but in years. The recent report by the Bank of Spain or the OECD forecast discuss the gravity of the macroeconomic projections and point out that Spain is one of the countries in which will be most badly affected as a result of the strict confinement measures, as well as the dependency of the economy from the sector of services, particularly tourism, and the high weight of small companies that are more vulnerable to the pandemic. Other independent institutions have reached similar conclusions. Therefore, the prospects for Spain and Latin America, which is a particularly important region for Indra, is still uncertain and will depend on the effectiveness of the recovery measures dependent on the decisive action of governments. We cannot trust in a fast or easy recovery. The implications of the crisis for clients are very tangible. Almost all sectors are hit. In many of these sectors, the disruption of the pandemics has not only caused an intense contraction of the activity throughout the value chain, but it is also forcing the redefinition of business models and operational models and accelerating trends of change that will transform the demand mix. Some of these changes will be structural, such as the general acceleration of digitalization with the implementation of a contactless economy, a drive towards automation and AI, complete transformation of physical footprints of the industry, with acceleration of the cloud and as-a-service models, and an even greater emphasis on sustainability and responsible business management. Clients will have to review their strategy, reconsider their investments, evolve their business models in a context of scarcity of resources and profitabilities which are in continuous deterioration. Indra has to be closer than ever to these groups and very aware of the structural changes that are taking place in society and the economy to identify how we should act and in which direction we should transform ourselves. In other words, we have to ask ourselves, how can we maintain and reinforce the value creation path of Indra? We have a huge challenge before us. Our environment has changed and we just simply have to adapt to it. This environment will be different and full of difficulties, but also will have opportunities. In Indra, we are starting from a good place with the growth of our portfolio due to the investments we have made in the company, all the technological capabilities we have developed, and the improvements of our cultural transformation. But we are also aware of the need of improving our profitability and competitiveness. This crisis is making this more important. Our IT business has a certain degree of resiliency in comparison to other sectors, but its profitability is highly compromised by the halt in growth. Negative impact in operational deleveraging is particularly critical, and mainly in fixed personnel costs in a competitive environment that is getting even more so due to the crisis. Many of our services are essential for business continuity of our clients, but we will suffer downward pressure of prices derived from the lower investment capacity or the budgetary availability, and we will experience structural changes in the demand for technological solutions we will have to tackle. Our typical client is a large company who is suffering the crisis and will reduce their investment, but they will not disappear, as could be the case for smaller companies. On the other hand, our transport and defense business is linked to the public sector and very vulnerable to eventual budgetary cutbacks. And the public in debt is high. In contrast, the type of T&D contracts is very long duration, and the solid position of our portfolio will provide us stability and visibility on the business. But any delay could be damaging for our short-term performance. To all the above, we must add the high business volumes we have in geographies with oil-dependent economies, where we will have drastic cutbacks in investments, or in regions like Latin America, which are having exchange rates that are evolving negatively. As I said, we have new opportunities every day, mainly in the digital environment, particularly in mobility, safety, security, and the digital transformation of value chains. We will see an acceleration of key aspects of digitalization for which we have unique capabilities, which is a big, strong point for our company strategically. In summary, we were in a highly positive dynamic in all areas: growth, profitability, improvement of supply, and attraction and retention of talent. We had an ambitious budget for 2020, and we were doing well towards our objectives to be the European technological and digital leader in areas of IT and transport and defense, and that also is capable of attracting and retaining the best talent. The abrupt interruption caused by COVID-19 as regards its severity, duration, and recovery has hit us, but we have reacted positively after the first initial shock, but the new scenario will bring deep structural changes, and clients will demand different solutions. Therefore, we will see a critical acceleration of digitalization in all sectors as a tool for improved efficiency as well as to transform processes. In the face of this challenge, we must delve deeper in our transformation to give an agile response to these changes. This competitiveness was highly dependent on the ability to grow and leverage our fixed costs. We must also take into account that a part of the work that we deliver in affected geographies such as Latin America or Middle East are carried out from Spain. So the global slowdown has a direct effect and multiplying effect over our competitiveness in Spain. So in addition to prepare for the future and reinforce our strategy, we have to take adequate decisions in the short term. Only in this way we will be the company that we want to be and continue to offering high growth potential in this new scenario. Turning to another matters, and as established by Recommendation 3 of the Good Governance Conduct of listed companies, I would like to refer to the most relevant aspects in corporate governance that have taken place since the last general meeting. The most relevant are, in the first, the creation of a sustainability committee to focus the strategy and policy of the company in sustainability. This new committee is formed by independent and external advisors. As regards the control of risk, we have supervised and driven the work of the internal audit company, the compliance unit, and have approved during the past year the updates of the risk maps and policies of the company, as well as central policy on competency. We would also like to talk about the good recommendations of Indra has not only complied with all the recommendations, particularly recommendation 48 to separate two different committees, because it was not considered convenient to have this separation due to the reasons that were reported to the previous annual general meetings. I would like to add that in what concerns the letter received by Doña María Piñero to decline her acceptance of the appointment, the board is deeply disappointed. I would like to thank you, would like her for availability during the entire process. And I would like to thank her for her decision and her availability, continuous availability throughout the process. Now, to conclude, I have reviewed the results for 2019, the record numbers of contracts that has grown 7%, and portfolio that exceeds 4.5 billion in local currency, the growth of EBIT of 11% vis-à-vis the previous year, up to 221 million euros, reaching an EBIT margin of 6.9%. These results confirm the positive results during this year in growth and profitability, as well as improvement of strategic aspects of the company. This inertia has been drastically interrupted by the COVID-19 crisis. The effects have truncated said positive evolution and has brought in uncertainty due to the depth and duration thereof. Our clients are also seriously affected by a crisis which, in all likelihood, will drive structural changes in the business models and operational models, and we have to be very close to them to understand how we must evolve. But to guarantee our future, we must act in the short term on our own efficiency and competitiveness, which were badly hit by the impact of the crisis and the restriction of our income, which, due to our structure of cost and the nature of our business, is particularly negative for our performance. Therefore, we need to recover competitiveness and profitability to maintain the huge potential for growth of the company. With a sustained investment and a long-term vision, Indra has built a uniquely powerful set of capabilities. We have a strategic perspective and a unique team in the core of a global industry which is highly dynamic and which has a great potential to generate a lot of value for Spain. We have to face challenges and take difficult decisions, but I'm convinced that there are many reasons to look at the future with optimism. Due to everything that we have done in the past few years, we are well prepared to overcome the current difficulties, to address a new transformation and take advantage of the strong points we have to return to growth. I would like to finish expressing my gratitude to all the professionals of Indra and the management team for the effort they have made, particularly in the most difficult moments of the current crisis, and my particular acknowledgement to Cristina Ruiz and Ignacio Matais for their good criteria for transforming their businesses and the leadership shown during this stage. Finally, I would like to express my gratitude for the trust you have given us one more year, and I would like to convey my wishes for good health and welfare for all of you and for all the professionals of Indra. Thank you very much.
Vale, muy bien. Pues cedo la palabra al presidente, al secretario.
Now give the floor to the secretary to comment. We have only received one request for intervention through the telematic channel from the Foundation of Responsible Investments through its representatives, Pedro Manuel Sacia Santos, who is attending through a remote channel. He has made a number of expressions against war, and as indicated in the call to the meeting, in accordance with Article 182 of the Companies Act, this intervention will be replied within a period of 7 days, will be included in the minutes and attached in the website, both the question and the answer. Thank you. Now I give the floor to the Secretary once again to report on the final quorum. Please be advised that finishing the count of attendance and telematic attendance, the quorum is as follows. We have 72 shareholders present who own over 37 million shares, representing 21% of the capital. We have 204 shareholders who own over 86 million shares, representing 49% of the capital. Total 262 276 shares, owners of over 123 million shares with a capital percentage of just over 70%. Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. At this point in time, we close the list of attendants, and I ratify the valid establishment in the second call of this general shareholders meetings that is empowered to deliberate and adopt all the agreements included in the agenda. Mr. Notary, I ask again if there are any objections or reservations about the agenda, and also those who are attending through remote channels, they have the ability to do so. Now I will give the floor to the Secretary to inform about the voting procedure. In accordance to the details given in the call, that proxy vote delegations that have been given, either specifically or generically, have been granted to the Secretary, who is the Secretary of the Board. As established by the statutes of the companies, the general meeting has enabled the means for shareholders to exercise their voting rights or to give them by proxy. As detailed in section 4.4 of the call to the meeting, the telematic attendance has been counted as from the point when the telematic attendee has registered. In case that the shareholder has not indicated the sense of the vote, it is understood that he will vote for the proposals. To the purposes of Article 523 of 126 of the Companies Act, any representative that is also a member of the board could be in a conflict of interest as regards the proposals of agreement other than those established or proposed by the board. Both in the events of delegation through the Secretary of the Board or to a member of the board, the conditions described in the call to the meeting will be applicable. Or are there any other business not included in the agenda? Having already counted the remote votes, the delegations given to the members of the board, the shares represented in the board, and the shares that the members of the board own, it means that all items on the agenda will be approved with sufficient majority. The results of these votes will be shown in the website of the company as established in Article 25 of the Companies Act. However, if any shareholders wishes to know the detailed vote of any specific item on the agenda, he may request so because the voting is done in real time. Therefore, for the counting of votes, only the shareholders who are present in the room who wish to vote against or abstain in any item of the agenda must come to the voting table in the background of the room to be identified and to have their vote registered. As per Article 197 of the Companies Act, separately, each one of the proposals for appointment of members of the board will be voted. There have been no proposal for voting in a different sense of this point. Now we will vote the items included in the agenda. To this effect, so that the attendants will have the minimum quorum, and due to the fact that the full text has been present for all shareholders, unless there is any objections by shareholders, it is proposed to take these texts as already read. Is there any objection to this procedure? So then we shall proceed accordingly. The first point of the agenda, approval of the annual accounts and its consolidated group for the 2019 financial year. If any shareholder wishes to vote against or abstain, he or she can do so at this point in time.
This is approved with enough majority. Next point on the agenda, the consolidated report on non-financial information for 2019. If any shareholder wishes to vote against or abstain, they may do so at this point. In accordance with all the information, this is approved by sufficient majority. Point number 3, the result for 2019. If any shareholder wishes to vote against or abstain, they may do so at this point. This is approved by sufficient majority. Point 4. Approval of management of the Board of Directors during fiscal year closed 31st December 2019. Any shareholder wishing to vote against or abstain may do so at this point. Point number 5, appointment and re-election of directors. In accordance with current legislation, appointments are voted for individually. 5.1, appointment of Ms. Carmen Acarreta Ferraz as an independent director. You may vote against or abstain at this point. This is approved by sufficient majority. Appointment of Ms. Rosa Maria García Piñeiro as an independent director. If any shareholder wishes to vote against or abstain, they may do so at this point. In accordance with all information provided, this is approved by sufficient majority. Re-election of Ms. Silvia Iranzo Gutiérrez as an independent director. You may vote against or abstain at this point in time. This is approved with sufficient majority. Point 6, amendment of Articles 14 and 23 of the Bylaws for the primary purpose of allowing the exercise of attendance and voting rights at the annual shareholders' meetings remotely and by telematic means, in accordance with the provisions of Articles 182 and 521.2 of the Companies Act, as well as to incorporate certain technical procedures. In accordance with this article, any proposals must be voted for individually. If any shareholder wishes to vote against or abstain, they may do so at this point. In accordance with the information received, this is approved with sufficient majority. Point 7, amendment of Articles 3, 5, 7, 7b, newly created 8b, 11, 12, and 14 of the Rules of Procedure for the annual shareholders' meeting, with the primary purpose of allowing the exercise of telematic attendance and voting rights at the annual shareholder meeting in accordance with the provisions of Articles 182 and 521.2 of company law, as well as to incorporate certain technical procedures. If any shareholder wishes to vote against or abstain, they may do so at this point in accordance with information received. This is approved with sufficient majority. Point 8, approval of the compensation policy for directors. If any shareholder wishes to vote against or abstain, they may do so at this point. In accordance with the information received, this is approved with sufficient majority. Point 9, consultative vote on the 2019 annual compensation report. If any shareholder wishes to vote against or abstain, they may do so at this point. In accordance with the information received, this is approved with sufficient majority. Point 10, authorization for the derivative acquisition of the company's own shares directly or through subsidiaries. If any shareholder wishes to vote against or abstain, they may do so at this point. In accordance with the information received, this is approved with sufficient majority. Point 11, authorization and delegation of powers for the formalization, registration, and execution of the resolutions adopted at the meeting. If any shareholder wishes to vote against or abstain, they may do so at this point. In accordance with the information received, this is approved with sufficient majority. Point 12, finally, information to the meeting on amendments made to the board rules. In accordance with Article 528, the board is informed that the meeting that taking place on the 29th of December included a resolution to modify existing regulations, including a new article, and modifying articles 8, 11, 12, 30, 20, 26, 28, 20, and 39. These modifications are the result of the report compiled by the board and which has been made available to shareholders during the call for this meeting. In view of the results of the voting that has just taken place, we formally declare all agreements approved. And we adjourn the session. Thank you so much for your presence.